Second. Ah, yes, we're live. I need to... If you want to, you can open up the stream and make sure the audio is alright. It should be pretty good. Oh, I have desktop audio muted. Okay. Make sure the music isn't overriding my voice. Let me see, how many people... Do we have anybody watching right now?
Hold on a second. I'm gonna mute you on Zoom and then just listen.
Okay. Hello, hello. Let's see.
I can mute myself on Zoom.
Okay. So we have some people in here.
That's cool.
I'm trying to go into the stream dashboard real quick to see if I can see like how many people. It's not showing it, but we can get down with the interview. So,
yeah. Go. Let's do it.
Can you tell the people who are watching a bit about who you are and what some of your accomplishments are?
So my name is Josh Polk. I'm a lecturer here in computer graphics technology. And accomplishments in like school, life, sports. Like my basketball team, my church basketball league won the championship last winter before COVID hit. We actually didn't get to play the final tournament because that got canceled. They started banning people from meeting places, but we won the regular season out, so that's a recent accomplishment. You're probably wondering more about computer graphics stuff, though, I'm assuming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so wow. So I think my biggest accomplishments are just all the interesting places I've worked and jobs I've done. And I mean, haven't words or that kind of thing for the most part. A few here and there, but
okay.
I don't necessarily go after those kinds of things necessarily, but worked on a lot of cool projects over the years, and I've been teaching here as a lecturer. This is my fourth year in, I think, correct? Yes, fourth year.
Mm-hmm.
And having a lot of fun doing it, and just got off a Photoshop class actually,
Okay.
which is one of my favorites.
Cool. If anyone's in chat right now, you can ask whatever questions you like, and we'll be going back and forth. So, here's a fun one. If you could compare yourself with any animal, which would it be and why?
I'd probably have to go. I mean, I always like the attitude that a dog has, particularly a golden retriever. They just always they seem to be like in a good mood most of the time. They kind of get along with everyone. They kind of fun-loving and adventurous, just like to run in the yard and play, that kind of thing. And I try to keep everybody happy and get along with everybody, and that's sort of my general outlook in life, I'd say.
Okay, that's a nice answer. I like that. If you could have a superpower, what would it be?
Definitely flying. Like, I've had lots of flying dreams over the years, and I was pretty obsessed with Superman. Like when I was a kid, the Superman movies were like being released, like with Christopher Reeve, like that version of Superman. And so I had a Superman 3 poster above my wall on the bunk bed, and I don't know, it just always seemed like if I were to be a superhero, that's the superhero I would be. But definitely flying if I had to pick.
Okay.
Pick just one of his skills,
Mm-hmm. King Tater Chat and Odd Rendezvous in the chat. Welcome to the stream. I looked at your page on the IUPUI website. What caused you to make the switch from interdisciplinary engineering to computer graphics?
Wow. So that's So I went to Purdue, and I started off, actually, when I visited Purdue for the first time, strangely enough, I toured their vet school. Like, I was in a phase for maybe a few months or something where I wanted to be a vet. I still think that would be kind of interesting, but maybe the blood and gore kind of aspect, I'm not super into that, maybe. But um, one thing I found out, the vet school is really competitive, so kind of strayed away from that. But I started looking at Purdue because in middle school, my English teacher, her son-in-law went to Purdue, and he was a electrical engineer, computer and electrical engineer. It just sounded really good. I was like really into computers, and when I was young, I saved money from my paper route to like build my own computer, and I was putting parts together. Really was just interested in that kind of stuff. And so he went to Purdue and was doing really well, and that just sounded like a great job to have. So I got into engineering. Freshman year was fine, kind of kicked me in the butt a little bit. Like it was calculus. They shouldn't call it engineering. They should call it math or calculus, just calculus, because pretty much every class that was engineering, whatever, was some form of calculus. And I don't know, that wasn't kind of like, my mind is kind of more design. Like when I was thinking engineering, I was thinking more of, I probably should have went into actually computer engineering technology, which they do more hands-on kind of stuff, because I'm pretty hands-on. Like I build stuff at home and work on my deck, and I like to do stuff like on hands rather than a theoretical calculus and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, more and more, like I was finding out that I was like drawing pictures of I was drawing the room, sketching the room, rather than like paying attention to the math being taught to me. But I was invested, I was like a couple years into it. I put a lot of work into like get through the classes and stuff. So I didn't really want to just bail on engineering. And this is actually a really long answer. I don't know if you expected that.
It's perfectly fine. That's helpful to the stream.
Yeah, I was really involved just because like I was getting drawn to art, and I actually applied to Ringling School of Art and Design down in Florida at one point and got accepted into their animation program. I was actually trying to get into their computer animation program, and I didn't get into that. As they only took like 24 students or so like per semester or something, and so I didn't get into that. But they said, hey, you can join us in computer or the traditional animation. And at that point, like everything was going to computers, so I was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if that's what I want to do. So, but they just started CGT, so they had technical graphics at Purdue for quite a while. I don't know when that officially started, but that just started switching over to computer graphics technology, CGT, same as what we do here. Exactly. I mean, they have the same course numbers, and we actually branched off of them, but. They just started CGT around that time when I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so they also started the interdisciplinary engineering, which is back to your original question. What that allows you to do is basically create your own engineering degree. So I had 2.5 years of math and I did all the engineering classes, right? But I wanted to build websites and do multimedia and do graphics and do all that kind of stuff. Well, I figured out that I could take the CGT classes and add them to all the engineering stuff. I was done with engineering. Like I had all I needed in the engineering category, and then I was just adding computer graphics and things. And so basically my last 2 years of undergrad, I was just taking all the CGT courses, like undergrad stuff. And then I got out of there with an engineering degree, which I'm super proud of. Like it's really hard to get, honestly. And so I'm proud of that. I saw one of your questions was biggest accomplishments. Just getting out of Purdue with that engineering degree, like I'll forever be proud of that. So that's how I switched over. And then I actually kept going to grad school there at Purdue because there was more CGT to take, right? So I wanted to take more and more. And I did the master's there in their CGT program. Now that too, I was tempted by some other places, like I looked at SCAD and some other master's programs, but Purdue is awesome. And so that was a big weight factor. And then also, it was also free. So if anybody, I encourage students of this all the time, like grad school, like you can, like, so SCAD said, I was like, okay, what kind of deals you got? What kind of financial aid? And they said, well, you can borrow up to $100,000. I'm like, fantastic. My Purdue deal was, you can be a graphic designer for the athletic department part-time, 20 hours a week, and you can go to grad school for free, and we'll pay you like $1,400 a month. for doing that job.
Wow.
Like, okay, yeah, sign me up. So I'm a huge Purdue sports fan. So being able to, I was able to take pictures on the field, on the basketball court, and put together all kinds of cool, fun designs. I did design logos. Like they didn't let me design stuff for the Purdue and basketball because they like hired firms to do that. That's pretty high level.
Mm-hmm.
But I did all the other sports. So they have 18 other varsity sports. And so I did softball and baseball and wrestling. And so I designed t-shirts and cups and all the graphics and stuff that went along with that, and taking pictures and all that. And I had a blast. Like it was fun, and college was free. Like if I hadn't met my wife, I might still be there, like getting my 4th PhD or something.
Mm-hmm.
My wife said, "You have to leave college. Like you can't stay here forever." Like, oh. So now I'm teaching. So
Yeah.
I'm still in college, kind of, but I get paid better as a professor. So.
Okay. What was it like working for Hoosier Lottery? Did they?
So I worked for them. Yeah, go ahead.
Did they like have to educate you in some sort of way to make the ads more clickable or anything like that?
Sure. So the with Hoosier Lottery, I actually worked for an ad agency that used to be called MSK when I worked there, and then they fired the person who was the S, so it became MK, and then now they merged with somebody, and I think the last I saw they're called MK plus Radius or something. Mm-hmm. I mention all that because they hire interns all the time, and they like graphic design interns, and their interns have a lot. They usually do that. Well, actually, they do it all the time, but the summer interns, they grill out, they hang out, we do fun stuff. Like they go to usually some kind of event over the summer. But anyways, I work for this ad agency that Hoosier Lottery was one of the clients. So they were one of the biggest clients they had, and then also the Indy Racing League. So all the Indy 500 advertisements and stuff like that. So what I did there was a lot of development for banner ads. So the graphic designers would design, they'd do the Photoshop and put everything together, and then they'd ship it over to our department. It was me and a couple other guys, and then we'd code it all out. So we used JavaScript and GreenSock and CSS, HTML, all that kind of stuff. Okay. And we coded all that stuff. But yeah, a lot of it was, how do you get somebody to click on a button? Like what kind of animation? And this is what we're going to cover shortly. I've got multiple lectures already prepared that we'll cover in our class, Alex, with that talk about that. Like when you animate a button on the screen or text across the screen, like what makes someone want to click on it, or what makes them look at it, or is it a functional animation, or is it just like a dog and pony show as you're just making things explode for the heck of it or whatever? But Hoosier Lottery was interesting. There's some peculiarities with that in the sense that there's a lot of legal stuff that goes along with lottery. So we actually had this huge paragraph of legalese that by law had to be on every banner ad. So we're designing like these tiny banner ads that go at the bottom of different things, and we have this huge paragraph of blah 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 that like had to be in there. So we had to get creative about, like can you put that on different screens? Like, can we have a pop-up where it pops up? Like it had to be readable. Like you couldn't just put the text there and make it 2-point, and have it just look like lines. Like it had to be readable. I think we'd make it like 6-point or something like that. It was like the lowest we could go with the most readable font that size. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it definitely did. My next question would be, what was the interview process like for the Department of Defense?
Oh, good Lord. That's some intensity right there. So, and it got worse. Like, after I got there, like the process took a lot longer. So, I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. And to get onto that, like, so you need to have pretty high security clearance actually for that. So they, I'm trying to remember what the form called. It's a very common, like anybody who's worked for the government at that level, like knows what it's called. I can't think of it at the moment, but you have to write down, like you have to put on this document almost everything about your entire life. Like it's insane. And what I was at Purdue for a long time. So I did 5 years undergrad and 4 years at grad school. So I was there for a long time. And so I think like every year I moved. So I had different roommates. I had a different place, a different address, well, I kept my phone number for the most part. And then I had all kinds of jobs. Like I had jobs that overlapped and jobs that were, that went for 3 months, and then I'd have a break, and then I'd work there because like I did the graphic design stuff, but I was also a computer lab attendant, which if you can get a job like that on campus, get it, because that's the job where you refill a printer and you work on your homework and you get paid to do it, basically. So like I don't know if they have too many of those jobs around here, but sorry, I'm branching off your original question here. But the reason why I'm saying like I had all these jobs, all these places to live, like I had to record all that in this, like I had to recall like the last 9 years of my life, and you need to have somebody that they could call, like their phone number, contact information for people that knew that I lived at that place at that time. They needed all the address information, like all the kinds of bank statements and all that kind of junk. And also like I had a lot of international friends. Like Purdue's very international, so I have a friend, his name is Johnson. Like that's just what we called him. Like I literally didn't know what his actual name was. Like, but they wanted to know, like, because they have to cross-reference like people from other countries and stuff, because they're worried about foreign spies and stuff like that. So like they're wanting, what's his name, what countries he's from, and like I'm like, I don't know. We just call him, like I'd write down Johnson. Like I didn't even know what his like full name or how it was spelled or whatever. So some of that stuff I had to dig up. But man, it is intense. It's taken some months. Then they interview on the phone. They come to your house, and it's like an agent shows up. Like they're not wielding a gun, or they're probably loaded, or packed or whatever. But they're not like with that. They're not scary or whatever. But I mean, it's official. It's like an agent shows up, and they separate you from your spouse and ask you. Like they asked my wife, like if I'm plotting the overthrow of the government and questions like that. Like, because they want to know, like, if I'm somebody trying to get into the system.
Wow.
And steal secrets and all that kind of stuff. They interview your neighbors, they interview your past neighbors. Then you go to DC and they interview you there, give you the tour and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I was really paranoid when I went on my interview, because they gave me the hotel and everything. And I'm like, there's definitely a camera and maybe even a room of people like behind that mirror, right? Like I was super paranoid about all that. Probably the government doesn't have those kind of resources to, maybe at a certain level, but I don't think I was at that level for, so I was a visual, trying to remember the name, but visual communication specialist, something like that. I forget what the title is. I have to look, but, visual information specialist. That's slightly off there, and did some crazy cool work there. Like nothing like too. I don't know. People want to always know the secrets and things, and I would say there wasn't anything too terribly exciting that I ran across. I mean, we printed out a lot. I mean, we had the Iraq War leftovers going on, so we printed. Like I worked in a full print shop. We printed out huge maps and mounted them on foam core board and stuff like that for presentations. Like the Intel analysts would present things to Congress and military people and the president. For a while, I worked on a PowerPoint briefing that effectively, like, it went to the military intel officer, and then it went to the Secretary of Defense, and then it was like the president's morning brief, basically. And so we would like plug in the graphics that went into that PowerPoint every morning. Wow. So it was like some pretty interesting stuff, but I don't know, at the end of the day I had to leave there because it was like squashed my creativity, because of all that security and everything, like just really simple things like just having a computer at your desk to search the internet. So I did like some web development and stuff there. Like that's really difficult when you can't look up things constantly and be even connected. Like I shared a computer with this guy that I called Milton. He was kind of like the dude from Office Space that like wandered around the office talking to himself. Mm-hmm. This guy, like, he got paid 6 figures. Like he had worked there forever. He was just like one of those typical government employee types that like was getting paid 6 figures to wander around. And I think he scanned documents. like he was a document scanner sometimes. Like they got paperwork and stuff from Saddam's palaces and things out in the out in Iraq, and they bring it back, and you had to have like specially trained people to scan that stuff in, because I guess it could have poison on it, or I don't know, different thing. But I don't know. I just saw the guy wandering around. I never actually seen him do any actual work. So I shared a computer with him, and he'd be back there like doing whatever, like checking his Hotmail or something. And, you know, I'd have to look up some code or something. And it was just, I don't know, stuff like that made me totally nuts.
It's pretty funny.
Really interesting job, though. They had a Saddam Hussein's, like, he had a golden shotgun that was just like in this glass case. I got to work with the history. They had like a history department over there, and we did some cool like multimedia kind of things that showed off just different things about military or whatever.
Okay. They said my audio is a little bit low, so I'm trying to make sure, like, hopefully I'm not too loud now.
Yeah, you sound good to me on the Zoom side, but
okay. Did they have you go through any, like, did you have to keep any secrets or anything like that as part of the Department of Defense? Anything? If you're
like
even allowed to answer that now.
Well, I have to kill you, so if you disappear next week, then yeah, that's what they say. Yeah, I mean, there was certainly, actually the coolest stuff I did there was I had 8 weeks of training at the front end, where we just learned all about intelligence collection and all the different services. Like we went to the NSA, and they gave us kind of a one day, like we went to their building and they told us some things, and you know, just like all the different ways they monitor different countries. Like there's signal intelligence, and there's you know, where they're monitoring, you know, stuff over the air, satellite signals, stuff like that. There's audio, there's visual, like human. There's everything is like acronyms over there. There's acronym, like just tons and tons of acronyms for all the things. So you got to learn all these acronyms and stuff. They had us do like red teams, where we like mocked up like these war battles and things, which I don't even know what exactly that had to do with anything. Maybe that had more. That might be because I took the class with Intel analysts and people that had all kinds of different jobs and stuff. So that was really fun and cool to do. And then I don't know if anybody's seen Argo, the movie with Ben Affleck. Really cool movie if you haven't seen it. It actually talks about how there were some U.S. hostages that were like stuck in Iran, and there's this guy he started off in the CIA as a graphic designer, and he like just forged passports and stuff. Like that's how he started his job, and he moved his way up the ranks to become like a top dude in the CIA, and that was Ben Affleck's character. I can't think of his name off the top of my head at the moment, but he actually that was like during the Cold War, and so they had a lot of stuff going on with Russia. Like the lady he was married to actually was like a spy in Russia, and I think he did stuff over there. But he has a book out called The Master of Disguise, and he talks about how he met with he called him JC, but pretty much, you know, it's James Cameron. He met with James Cameron when he worked for the CIA, and they developed these different techniques on disguise, because they had these agents like running around Russia, like trying to basically, what would happen is you would have somebody would be there in Russia, like officially, like Russia would know about them being there, like they worked in the embassy or something, but their real job was to like collect intelligence or whatever. And so basically, if you were an American in Russia, like they would follow you around, like they would just follow you everywhere you went. So they needed these disguise techniques so that somebody could basically like duck in an alley and like put Mission Impossible stuff, right? And change their identity so they would lose their tails and stuff like that. And so that they could go do whatever the heck they needed to do. And so anyways, that Ben Affleck guy, he started as a graphic designer, developed all these awesome techniques, and basically just became in charge of like all that disguise and like all, like hidden cameras and pens, and he was in charge of that. I forget the name of the department, but he was in charge of that. And he put together this whole operation and went himself to get these Iranians or get the Americans out of Iran. And like it's a crazy story. Anyways, like one day of our class, he was in our class, not Ben Affleck, but the actual guy, and told us like the whole like first person narrative of, you know, almost getting, you know, they've got their fake passports and disguises and all this stuff, and they're at the airport like trying to get out and on the plane. And I mean, I don't know if the movie's awesome. Like, check out the movie Argo. But the Master of Disguise, he's got a chapter at the end of the book that basically tells the same story, and it's really interesting stuff. And I don't know, I just love the fact that he was just like, he started as in like print press kind of stuff and like graphic design work, and worked his way up to become this like master spy kind of person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
and
cool.
I actually got a job offer from the CIA to be kind of a visual communication specialist over there at one point as well. I had on paper like a job offer, and I don't think it was any funny business, but the guy that was in charge, like the supervisor, whatever, in charge of putting the job together and arranging it, passed away. So maybe, I don't know, like I think they said he just had a heart attack or something, but I don't know what goes on over there, so I can't say for sure. But anyway, the guy died, and the job went away. Like, he basically, you had to pull strings. They called a billet, is what they call a job position over for the government, and the job just kind of went away. And at that point I was kind of over it, getting my creativity sucked out of me by the government, and just kind of moved on. People kind of thought I was nuts for leaving, because it's definitely like, once you get it takes a year of that interviewing all your family, and a huge expense to get those kind of clearances. So once you're like in that job, like they hardly fire nobody. Like, there's a bunch of people wandering around that are completely useless just because, you know, it's too hard to replace them.
Yeah. Why did you decide to become a professor?
So I would say the main reason is like I said, I was at Purdue for a long time. I've always just liked learning. Like, I always like learning new things. I like learning new software, new techniques, just different ways of doing things, seeing it done different ways, like combining different fields and making new things. And teaching has always just allowed me to just to stay in it, you know, to keep learning so that I can teach other people stuff. So it allows me to like continually have because what happens, like, if you go and just work somewhere, a lot of times you get a specific job most of the time, and you have to do something, and you have to do it well, and you're not looking at all, you're not always like studying all the different things. So I found, like, sometimes when I go out and work with people, they're doing something the hard way, right? Like, they're trying to design this thing in Photoshop. Like, I worked for this one company one time that's in Carmel. They're called Tour Design Creative. Actually, a really cool. So they're basically Live Nation, but they're little subdivisions called Tour Design. But they design all the posters and the concert things and all this stuff for like basically everybody that comes into, you know, perform downtown or at the Ruoff Home Mortgage Center or whatever they call it these days. Like all the, you know, Lady Gaga, like Janet Jackson, like whoever's coming through, like they design posters, they design like, so this is a job you want to, if you want to design stuff like that, watch it, because they have internships and stuff every once in a while. Like, check that place out. But I worked with them a little bit, and they were kind of doing things the hard way. They were like designing these posters where you had all these, they had posters in different media where they have all these different dates, right? So in Kentucky, it would be March 4th, and Indianapolis, you know, the band would be there, Maroon 5 would be there on the March 10th, and you know, that information was on a bunch of different places, and it had to be saved in a bunch of different files. Well, there's some automation stuff you can do in Photoshop actually, where you can, so I did it at the government, is because we did a lot of events out there, and like, just like something as simple as like having a name tag of somebody, like we did these name tags where it'd have their name and their food preference, right? And it was designed like it was a nice looking name tag. Well, you can load a data file effectively into Photoshop and read like an Excel file kind of thing, and automate printing out a whole bunch of different designs. Like, if they want chicken, you see a little chicken leg, and if they wanted fish, you see a little fish, and it can mass automate that. So I was like taking that to the tour design people, and I'm trying to remember the exact kind of project it was, but I showed them that, and they were like, holy crap, like this will save us hours. Like this is because they were doing it all manually and stuff. And I was like, oh, you can just load all this in with a data file. And they were like, so like just being able to, my point of all that was just like being able to, I like just learning about how to do that kind of stuff and sharing it with other people, helping them do things efficiently. I think there's a little bit of industrial engineering in me. I like things that are efficient and work well and that kind of stuff. So I like process, a process that works well and is efficient.
Yeah. Let's see. One moment, please. What is your day-to-day as a professor typically like?
I would say it's a mix of grading. Like I spend most of the weekend grading things, and as you know, it's usually like 1 a.m. or something like that. I saw on Twitter recently, like somebody was saying how like my professor posted my grade at midnight, and I emailed them and asked them if he was okay. I kind of had a laugh about that. But yeah, I'm okay. I just kind of a night owl. So yeah, a lot of grading. My big thing is like I like to give a lot of feedback. So I like to give you written feedback on why something works, usually more why something doesn't work is where a lot of, unfortunately I like to point out the good things where I can, but that sometimes that feedback is more really awesome job, and where the person where I have to say, well, that text is too close to this and this is too whatever. It's like, that requires a lot more writing. But I like to give a lot of detailed feedback. And I like, as you guys know, I like to give a lot of assignments, lots of exercises and things. And so I probably give myself more work than the average teacher because I'm like, everything that I give you, like I have to review later. So I'm paying for it as well, but it's for your benefit. And that's kind of my main goal of doing all that. So a lot of grading, a lot of feedback. But then also I'm just either like I'm continually like I never sit on a lecture from the previous semester and just leave it alone and give it again. Like I'm always like, even with Photoshop, like I've been working with Photoshop for like 20 years. And even now, like I'll go in there and I'll be looking at something I have to teach, even like something basic. And I'll be like, you know what? I've never like tried that option. And then I'll play with it and like figure out that option. And then, I don't know, that probably results in my lectures having too much details because I'm trying to explain every single thing I know to you guys. And maybe it's a little too much for sometimes, but yeah, just I'm always like reviewing my old lectures, and that combined with the fact that I have a bad memory as well, so some of it's just like kind of reminding myself what I taught before and kind of getting back up to speed on that. But it's keeps me busy for sure, definitely.
What would you say are some of the most challenging parts of your job as a professor?
I will say it's like, I always want people to do well, so I think it's frustrating when like I'm reaching out, I'm trying to figure out like, because I'll say when I give critical feedback, I'm almost always saying like, let me know like what can I do to help. Like, you didn't get this assignment in last week. Are you having trouble? Like what questions do you have? What do you need me to explain? Like, what can I make a tutorial for you that will make this better? And so I get frustrated if, you guys are so quiet. Like people don't hit me up for stuff very much. Like it's pretty rare, honestly. And like, I'm happy to help and to explain things where I can. And I guess my frustration is just when I see people struggling and like, they're not coming to me to like, let me help them or that. And then I don't know if it's laziness or like just trying to figure out what the problem is, because I want everybody to do well, and that's honestly my end goal all the time. It's like, even if you start off bad, like I want you to try to catch up. And like I always allow late assignments. There'll be a deduction because I think deadlines are important. I definitely enforce that, because like you can't be a graphic designer and not be good at deadlines, because stuff has to be done. Like stuff has to go to print. Like stuff has to go to what, like there's I did some magazine work over the summer where this ad goes on the back of this realtor's magazine. And it's like, if it's not there by Friday, they put the ad from last time, which is, then my client is going to pay thousands of dollars to publish an ad that is not relevant anymore. He's not going to be too happy about that. So I enforce deadlines. But like I said, I don't know. Some professors like, well, it's 2 days late, you get a 0. That's what you get. But I always, you can at least get 60% with me a month late and turn in your stuff. So that I want everybody to have the opportunity to at least catch up and do things.
Okay. So you worked for Big Idea Productions, who made VeggieTales. What kind of job did you perform there?
So that was an intern job for me. That was a whole lot of fun. I loved that environment because I was surrounded by some really amazing artists. Like you had concept art all over the wall. They had, like, I'd walk in and there's a guy like working on a Cintiq kind of thing, or just drawing on paper and making this amazing stuff. So that phase of my life, I was like really into 3D animation and kind of thinking about heading that direction, and was playing around with it. So they had, like, at the time they had SGI computers, Silicon Graphics, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were like the power horses that you needed to run Maya and all that kind of stuff. And so they had a whole room of them and people that knew how to use them. And so I would, like, after work, I would play with, talk to the animators and ask them questions of how they do things. And I would play around with the computers and try to animate some and model some of my own stuff and do that kind of thing. Just being surrounded by all that talent. And then, like, the people I work with were just a lot of fun. Like, I don't know, I think our department was like the screw off group or something, because we had a Super Nintendo, like, in our area, and, like, had frequent Mario Kart breaks. Like, we were just, there were definitely days where we, like, and our boss in that group I don't know how we didn't get in trouble, because, like, we'd play Mario Kart for like an hour and a half or something, like when things were slow or whatever, just do that kind of thing. So a lot of fun people, a lot of talented people. It killed me that I couldn't make that. I wanted to keep working there and do some more stuff, but I actually had some freelance work set up with them, and then they actually got sued by their video distributor, and they were trying to make a movie at the same time. They were doing Jonah and the Whale, and so they were putting all their money and resources into that, and then they got sued for like millions and millions of dollars for that, and then everything just exploded, and basically the company kind of went under, which is a huge bummer. And come to turn out that that lawsuit with the distributor actually got reversed, and Big Idea did win it, but that was years later, and it was like pretty much trashed them. Now their stuff is still out there, like some of the actors and animators and stuff still were able to work on it. I think they're actually releasing stuff on Netflix or something right now. I haven't been following them as much lately, but it was just a really, really fun place to work, and got to see a lot of good talent and behind the scenes of all that kind of thing.
That's cool.
Let me pitch interns real quick, man. This is why you, like, start now. Like, even if you don't even have the skills, like, start building yourself up to get your foot in the door in these places, because most of them, like, I knew a girl who got an internship with Lucas Digital, like, and that was one summer, like, where I was out in California, like, while she was working there, and I actually got invited to the Lucas Ranch for their company picnic. Like, I didn't see anybody like famous or, Han Solo or anything, but, it's like, it was around Ewok Lake, which is like a lake they have there on Lucas Ranch. It was just a phenomenal just to even be. It's like, I'm at Lucas Ranch, but she had an internship there, and I don't know, she wasn't like particularly skilled at, like, she was good, but she wasn't like a phenom or anything. I'm not sure how she got in there exactly, to tell you the truth, but like, the internships, they're competitive, but I kind of feel like those are an easier way to get into the door places than just like a straight up job. And also there is a level of, like I said, they are competitive, but you can, like, you don't have to be an expert. Like, I've had internships where I went in there and they taught me stuff. Like, there's some really amazing intern programs where, like, the Basement here in Indy, like, they expect you, like, they put you in different, I think it's the Basement if I'm remembering the right one, but they put you in like different groups to learn from all the different groups, and they make it, like, some intern programs are amazing where they their goal is almost to make you a better person. It's not even about them. It's kind of like to make you a better person so that they have a good pool to get really good employees from at some point. So they put a whole lot into it. I interned with Disney too at the Magic Kingdom, and that was through their college program, which I know some of our students have done that before. And it's probably completely different than when I was there. But when I was there, they had an animator come in and talk to us. They had an Imagineer. I got to shadow an Imagineer. I got to, walk around and see, get in the parks and ask people questions. And I bugged the artists that were there, like sketching, the goofy sketches for people and stuff like that. Not the goofy sketches, but the character Goofy. So yeah, that's your chance to like not have to be like totally qualified yet, but get in there. And honestly, a lot of that stuff, as I tell my students these stories all the time, is like you got to be out there. Like you got to show up at stuff. You got to go, like if they have meetings in indie, like meetups where designers are hanging out, you introduce yourself to people, you talk to them about, just ask them what they do and things like that. So that big idea job, I've told some of my classes this before, but I got that just from kind of bumping into the right people at the right time. I mean, there was a fair amount of luck involved in that. So I went to SIGGRAPH conference one summer, and like one of my sole goals was, I knew Big Idea was going to be there, and I wanted to apply for their internship and try to get a job with them. So they had a big booth set up and the whole thing. And so I was kind of like working up the courage to like go up there. They had some like HR people behind the booth or whatever, and working on my courage. I was like, all right, I'm going to do it on day 2 or whatever. So day 1, I'm walking around and just checking out exhibits and demos and stuff. And I'm watching this demo, and this guy asked a question. He's like, oh, hey, how do you do that? Whatever. And the guy's like, yeah. And then he's like, so I'm the media director at Big Idea. And he's like standing next to me, like telling this other guy this. I'm like, oh crap. Like, and so I'm like, my heart starts beating, and I'm like, he's like walking off, and I'm like, I got to talk to this guy. And so I kind of tap him on the shoulder, and I'm like, hey, I was super interested in maybe like, what department did you say you work in? I heard you work for Big Idea. I've been really interested in working with them. I haven't been over to the booth yet, but I was planning on talking to him and that kind of thing. And he's like, oh yeah. And he told me all the stuff he did. And I was like, are you guys have interns? Like, do you ever do that? And he was like, he's like, oh yeah, we could probably do, like, I could use an intern. Like, that sounds like a great idea. That'd be great. And so I got his business card, his contact info and all this. And he's like, call my secretary and we'll work this out. Like, that sounds great. Like, that would be awesome. And I was like, sweet. And so I ended up going to the booth later. But the thing about the booth is that like they got people come to them all day, right? Giving them resumes, they're getting resumes. And it turns out like they didn't even have an intern program at all. So if I had just gone to the booth and gave them my thing, they would have been like, well, we haven't really built up an internship program yet, but we'll take your information. Like, you'll hear that all the time. We'll take your information. It kind of goes in a pile and probably never gets looked at. But because I had met that guy, like I was calling back and forth, and he was like a total pain. Like, he was busy playing Mario Kart, so he was really hard to get a hold of like most of the time. And I was really persistent and just kept bugging him. And eventually it's like, all right, you come in, you start on this day, we're going to pay you this much, whatever, show up. And so I show up. This guy was a bit of like, he just did his own thing, right? So I show up and he's like, all right, well, we're going to talk to HR and figure out how to pay you because you're our first intern. And this is when he decided to tell HR that he was even hiring me. So I guess he had some flexibility, but they didn't even know, like, they didn't even have a way to pay me. Like, they had to figure that out like the first few days I got there because he was just running and gunning. So like, that's how I got into that. So I don't know, like, you just have to you get those opportunities by being out there and showing up at stuff and talking to people, and you're going to be their go-to. And, or like I was saying, my friend, the only reason I was at Lucas Ranch was because this girl, was out there that I sat next to in class, and I got to know her and I talked to her and we worked on projects together, and we got, and, another girl, like in my 111 drawing class, is like a senior art director over at the basement now. Like, people that you're sitting next to or virtually sitting next to or whatever it is now, like, become friends with them, talk to them, work with them. This is why that collaboration is important, because you like these people are going to go work somewhere, hopefully, eventually. And then, 5 or 10 years from now, they might be at Pixar or something, and that's what you're going for. And you know them and you're friends with them on LinkedIn, or you have their maybe Discord still around 10 years from now. I have no idea, but you buzz them and say, hey, I just got my portfolio done for this, or I just got my master's, or whatever it is. Like, hey, can you look at you're the first one they're going to look at, right? Unless you treat them like crap or something. They go to the people they know first. Because honestly, that kind of stuff, it saves them trouble. Like, they don't have to look through the stack of resumes, because they know somebody, they got a Uncle Bob told them, somebody's nephew or whatever. Like, those are the people they talk to first. So sorry, that was a long answer to whatever. I don't even remember what your original question was, but
it was about big idea, but yeah, it was a good answer. It's funny you mentioned SIGGRAPH, actually, because our next guy who's coming in at 6, that's pretty much how he got his foot in the door. He went to SIGGRAPH back in 90s, whatever. I believe you guys are around the same age. And he asked the people at the booths, like, how can I improve my portfolio? What's wrong with it? Etc., etc. Yeah. And they told him, and then eventually, like, he ended up working at Bethesda, which is a pretty big company. So, on that note, I wanted to ask, what did you do to get your portfolio to attract big players like Big Idea, and like what portfolio advice do you have?
Portfolio. So that's something to think about, because I haven't done that for a few years now. I've got a website out there with some stuff. My stuff's over at joshpolk.com, and it's starting to feel a little dated, I think, because I haven't really done much with it lately. It's got some of my ad agency work on there, a lot of it. But portfolio advice. So yeah, it's really a different landscape. I think you just have to. It's got to be fresh. What I try to push in my portfolio classes is that have some of the why. Like, if you just show the pictures, like, there's tons of that stuff out there. Like, is that gonna impress anybody? Like, there's tons of great artists out there. There's tons of visuals to see. Like, I don't know if that's gonna impress people anymore. Like, there's got to be something more. So what I encourage in my portfolio classes is for people to build these Behance pages where they explain, like, as a presentation, making the presentation itself look good, but also a chance to explain, like, when you built this logo, why is it red? Why is it blue? Why did you pick that typeface? How does that make sense for this company? How does that make sense for the target audience? Like, who is it for? Like, who's it? Like, what's the brand represent? So I really, in my classes, I really get into the brand and the why, and just everything behind why did you design it? How did you design it? Like, how did you sketch and just come up with it? What was the process? What ideas did you explore to get there along the way? I think that process stuff really would help you stand out. And it just shows that you're really thoughtful. And I know around my time, there was a guy who, what's his name? He is OK Samurai. He does the Adobe character animator. I always forget his name for some reason. He's works for Adobe now, but he had the most phenomenal, like, back when we said multimedia, like, there was, like, it was new to the web, like Flash and Macromedia Director was a program, like, you could animate things in and make them explode and have sound effects, and it was like the first time you could do all this stuff on the web. He had the most insane website to this day that I've ever seen. Like, he recorded video footage of him, like, making all the things, and like, he was a really good video producer. So, like, if he had a client, he'd have the wide shot of the client's building. And for this project, I had this client that did da 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 da, and then he'd show, like, all his pre-production work, and he had, like, special effects in the video. He had, like, this pixie dust effect that was, like, this Disney, like, thing that went across with his text, and, like, it was, everything about it was just insane. Like, it was like nothing I'd ever seen. And it was really in depth. It probably took him forever to put all that together, but back in the day, like, that was really impressive. Another thing I'd suggest too for that in-person interview. So like I said, everybody, you can send them your Behance, your Instagram, they've seen your digital portfolio. But what might make you stand out when you go to the actual interview is bring something that looks beautiful in print, like make a book. And that's something I did a few times, 10 years ago as well. It's like and people told me they appreciate it because like, instead of just telling me, oh, I worked on this one project, you could open up this nice book and say, hey, this is this thing that I worked on. These are my logos. This is the colors. You can go through it with them and go through the pages of the book. And that works for like a website too, because you can do screen captures or whatever, the different parts or the page itself. Just make it look nice and, have it bound, or, if you want to invest some money, like have it so you can leave it with, I mean, the cheapest way to do it was most of the time when I did it, is just kind of the spiral binder, like FedEx, Kinko's can put those together for you. You just give them a PDF and they can, and it doesn't have to be 8.5 by 11. It could be like a little book, or it could be something, that kind of stuff. Like if you could leave that, if you're really serious about somebody, leave that with them. And because I think that'll stand out, because people anymore, like you see all this stuff online, it's everywhere, but like how often do you have a piece of beautiful something in your hands that you could look at? I hear that advice a lot with photographers, because it's the same thing with, I follow a lot of photography stuff, and that's one of the things they push a lot for businesses is like, give them the physical thing, because we've all, everybody, you can take the pictures, you can look at them, you can scroll through and not even remember it because you just flipped past it, you looked at it for a second, but if you give somebody like a nice printed, framed thing or something, like that has an impact on them and is more memorable. It's tactile.
Okay, that's good advice. When you were in college, were there any professors that impacted you in some way, or professors that you remember?
I actually, well, I didn't. This is kind of funny, but I was just going to mention that Dr. Bannatyne, who isn't with us now, he was a professor when I was there as a student. Like he was over at Purdue, and I never actually had him though, so I can't say whether he inspired me or not. But I did have a professor, Morales, over there, that he did a lot of fun, like multimedia stuff, and he was just kind of I don't know, he was, we did, or gave us some flexibility with the assignments, but did some fun stuff with it as well. I'm trying to think, who else did I have over there? Probably my biggest inspiration as far as, design and like a teacher I've had was my high school art teacher. Actually really got me into it. He was a pretty professional, like famous sports artist. Like he lives down in Evansville, and he designed like everything for Don Mattingly. Don Mattingly used to be like all-star first baseman for the Yankees. And actually he's a manager for somebody now, right? I don't know if any baseball fans out there, but probably not. But he's a manager now, but he had a restaurant and he designed all the stuff, and he did caricatures of like the sports stuff. And he would every time he did a character for somebody, like he would do these famous sports people, he would do one for him and he'd do one for the celebrity, and he'd have him sign his, and then he'd just give the celebrity like the art. So he had all these signed stuff from all these sports players and stuff. So that was really interesting in high school. I'm trying to think college wise. Professor Morales, I really liked his classes. I'm like even trying to remember. I had a 3D lighting professor he ended up being on my advisory board, that he just explained things great. Like all his examples and demos were really good. He had like a lot of exercises, and now that I think about it, maybe I draw some inspiration from that, because I like instead of bigger project, like I like both. Like I like you having to do like a big project, but a lot of like little things I want you to do those well and kind of lead to something bigger, to where you can create the big thing. He had a lot of little exercise type stuff.
Okay. What was life like for you after college? Did you find a job shortly after college, or did you struggle to find a job?
So Let me get a drink of coffee here real quick.
It's all good.
All right, let me think through this. I've never been like completely like unemployed or anything, mainly because I've been teaching forever. So actually, while I was in grad school is when I started my teaching career. So I kind of like didn't really set out to be a teacher. Like I never went to college saying, you know, I want to be an engineer or to make stuff or to build stuff. I never really, at any point in college, was like, oh, I'm going to be a professor or something someday. Like that was never my goal, actually. But in grad school, I started teaching for the Art Institute. They had an online division. And so they offered degrees in web design and interactive media, game art and design, graphic design, like a lot of really cool areas. And I started off in their game department. So I was into 3D a little bit at that time. So I taught some 3D Studio Max, and I was just teaching, like I was an adjunct. So I was just teaching like 1 or 2 at a time. And then actually, just again, like I've had a lot of luck, I would say, in my life. A position became open for a full-time doing that same job. And what was kind of funny about it is I didn't have to teach a whole lot many more classes, just like one more class than what I was already doing. And I got paid like 10 times as much. Like I got a full-time salary with benefits and all that kind of stuff. Adjuncts kind of get the bad end of the stick sometimes. But so I started teaching in grad school, and I've pretty much been teaching ever since. I actually had that online teaching job for like 15 years before I went here. And so what was awesome about the online teaching job is that allowed me to be employed and do all kinds of stuff. So I could travel, I had another, like my whole Department of Defense job, that entire 3 years, I was teaching full-time online as well at the same time. So that's a great way to pay off student loans, I'll tell you. So I was doing that while teaching. Like that was just sort of like a bonus full-time job. Like the flexibility of the online environment, and it was all asynchronous, so I didn't teach any live video kinds of things. So I could like do stuff like late at night and whenever I needed to do it, and just as long as I got, you know, I had to grade things in 48 hours and they had deadlines and stuff. But totally lost track of where I was going with that. But teaching. Yeah, we're talking about teaching. Or no. You asked me post-college what happened. So what I advise to people, if they can, is to so you have your college life, and then you get married and have a family and blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Like once you get into that, you get married and have kids and things, you get a little bit stuck. You don't have to be necessarily. I don't want to say that it's like, don't get married, it's going to be the end of you, because I've had a lot of good adventures and stuff, you know, after all of that kind of thing. But you kind of have a rare opportunity after you graduate to where you could go places, you can do things. Like I think it's a law for people who are in Australia. If there's any Australians listening, you can tell me that you have to like take a gap year or go travel, because anywhere I've always traveled, there's always like tons of young Australians that are like just graduated or something. I think it's like just part of their rite of passage, like they have to go travel. But the first thing I did after I got my degree is like I jumped on a plane with my girlfriend at the time, but now wife, and we went to New Zealand, and we spent 3 months in New Zealand, and we spent 1 month in Australia, and we were just hanging out. And so I was teaching then, so I could, like, we were still kind of on a shoestring budget with everything, but we were able to, like, my goal was just to go somewhere and just live somewhere different for a while. And it's a phenomenal country. Like, I highly recommend to anybody. They've got it all. They've got beaches, mountains, snow, bungee jumping, everything. They've got everything in New Zealand. It's a gorgeous country. But if you have that opportunity, well, and I kind of mentioned this to one of my classes the other day, and one of the students is like, well, that's nice, but I could never afford to do that. Well, I told him, I was like, both of our flights to go there were free. Actually, my wife might have paid for hers. I don't remember, but mine was free. And like if you can, there's ways to do things, right? So I became like, I was getting credit cards that had like point bonuses and stuff, and I don't recommend that. If you can't, you got to be able to manage the books. Like, I'm totally anti-debt in general. I'm a Dave Ramsey fan as well, as far as that goes, if you've heard of him. But so be careful with the debt. I'll give that disclaimer. But I got like the credit cards, and I was just doing my everyday spending and stuff, you know, paying for gas and food and whatever, and getting like those bonus kind of points and stuff. And I was able to earn enough points combined with some other things, and basically like that flight was free. So it's not like it cost me to get there. But it, you know, it costs to travel. But you can, my first SIGGRAPH was like same kind of deal. Like I used some miles or points, and I stayed at a hostel. Like my first SIGGRAPH, I stayed in this room with like 12 other people I didn't know, and I think it was like $14 a night or something. And I was like walking around LA, like like to get from place to place to not have to pay for cabs and stuff. Like you can do stuff if you're willing to struggle through it a little bit.
Okay. My next question is, what job have you worked that posed the greatest challenge?
The greatest challenge. There's certainly been like little, I would probably say little freelance jobs where I said, yes, I can do, you know, I can definitely do that. And then it was like a lot of hours to figure out how to get the thing done. Because like really failure, like I can't deal with failure. I don't, like there's the thing with like, if you get into development, especially, that a lot of times there's not like a direct way to solve a problem, and like you could easily just be like, well, that can't be done, that doesn't work there, or whatever. And so there's a lot of problem solving involved in just like trying to figure out how to get something done. And like I think the main thing I learned from engineering at Purdue was that process, like being able to think, like being resourceful, being able to try lots of different things. And there's something about, I don't know what class I got it in exactly, or sort of just a combination, but just that process of getting through a problem. And so there were a lot of projects where, I mean, I was panicked at points, you know, it's like, oh, like, I don't know how I'm gonna get this done. Like, this is impossible. There was actually a bunch of things too that like, I managed to solve the problem and get the job done and get them the thing and not even actually understand. I definitely got this from my engineering classes, because there was a couple engineering classes that I had to take where I had no idea what was going on. Like, I didn't understand it. I didn't know what was going on, but I had to like earn the points one way or another. Like I wasn't cheating or anything, but you know, it's like I had to understand enough or figure out a way to put answers that were right, even if I didn't understand everything that led up to that. So there were projects that I worked on. Like there was one I did for the, it was like the Pacers or the RCA, or not the RCA, what's it called? Yeah, my brain's going blank, but you know, where the Banker's Life, but I feel like it was called something else right before that. Whatever it was called before that.
Or is that Lucas Oil?
Was it? I don't know. Was there an in-between name? I'm forgetting, but it was for that place. And they had this really complex, like it was Flash-based, like this multimedia thing that they were offering. Like it was a special event for ticket people, and it had animation and stuff in it. Like this thing kind of swung in from the screen, and it had all this interactivity and stuff. And they gave me this file. It was like the most complex multimedia thing I'd ever seen. And like, if I had tried to figure the whole thing out, like I would have had no clue. But I was able to dig into like the little bits and parts and kind of replace the things I needed to replace based on what they gave me, and like figure it out in the end. Like you just can't, like, I like the failure is not an option. Like you can't just like be like, well, client, I'm sorry, I don't have it for you. Like that was just never something that I could tell somebody. I had to like, I want to say maybe like only a couple times where it was like, this just can't be done. Like it just, like there's always like however many hours it takes to figure out how to make something work. Like one of them, when I worked for the ad agency, there were some email campaigns that were really tricky, because email, like doing email design is really, really tricky, because there's different phones, there's different mail clients, and very inconsistent. Like a div tag or a CSS thing works in one, it doesn't work in others. You have to have all these fallbacks, and it's really, really, really difficult to get everything to look at least not broken in all the things. And so there was a bunch of email assignments where like we got to that point where we're just really close to like, this just can't be done, it's like but you just try different things, or you just try to see it from a totally different angle and like figure out like a different way to do it. Even like I say, well, this didn't work, but we can do it this way instead.
Okay. Kind of going off of that, do you have any advice for handling picky or difficult clients?
Well, you will definitely have those. Sometimes you can kind of like mitigate like what, like if there's a certain part of the process where you're going to bring out their difficulty, like if you can work around that, if that makes sense. So like I have some, like I've been doing a little bit of logo design lately, and like if I give them too much stuff and like make it too complicated, like he either isn't going to respond to me or isn't going to, it's just going to make him more difficult for me. Or like if you give them, some clients, like if you give them too many options, like it'll confuse them. Like you want to simplify things. Or like if one advice I give my students is like if you're showing a client a bunch of options, like say a logo, and there's 5 of them, and one of them you're like not really a fan of, or you hate, or like it's just kind of one of the options, that is the one they're going to pick every time, like I guarantee. So if there's something you don't like, don't even give them that option. But so yeah, I don't know if I got like the perfect example for that, but like if you can, part of it is just like figuring out, like maybe it's like avoiding them in certain ways to where you're, I don't know, like I had a pretty tough boss at the Department of Defense. Like he would frequently say no, like he was just anti-innovation, like he would, if there's a new idea, it's like, nope, we've done it this way forever, like nope. Or I'm pretty sure he liked to say no to things because he could. Like that was the only reason, like just because he was the boss and he just liked to say no to stuff. And I think for people like him, and I think just being able to justify something, like if you have a new idea, like you don't just throw it at them and let them, like you have to justify it. Like you have to give them examples or show them little pieces of it to like have it make sense for them. And so that's not just like totally out of the blue, like, because it's easy to come up with an idea, but can you show a little bit of how it might work or what it might look like, or something like that? I don't know if I'm making any sense right now, because I know what I mean in my head, but
I think you are.
All right, cool. Is anybody watching out there? Am I talking to anybody? We got some questions or anything? Sorry, I don't want to hijack your.
No, it's all good. There's no questions from chat so far. There were some people that popped in. Jason popped in. A friend of mine popped in. But yeah, I'm not sure how many viewers we have. But this will be recorded, so we'll be posting this to YouTube.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions after the fact, you can just email me at joshpolk@iupui.edu, or just at IU if you don't want to type all those letters. At iu.edu should work too, right?
Absolutely. I was also going to ask, what advice would you give to CIT or CGT seniors who are gearing up to enter the workforce?
Just those connections, those collaborations. I think we kind of hit some of that already. Just, go to meetings and meetups. Like there was a group, I don't even know if they meet anymore, but some of the new media people had a meetup. What was it called? Some kind of like indie web developers group or something like that. And they just got together and somebody sponsored it, and they had donuts and pizza there half the time. And you just get to talk to people and see what people are doing and do that kind of stuff, like things that don't cost money, show up to stuff, where just industry professional, like AIGA, like they have, like I think I saw I don't know if it's this week or coming up. There's a guy named Aaron Scamahorn who goes by Ron Lahorn. I don't know if you've seen his illustration work, but he's an ND. He's got awesome illustration work, and he's given some lecture on protest graphics or something like that. I don't know, look kind of like it'd be kind of interesting about how to, like, he's been designing stuff to protest political things and this and that. And but stuff like that, go to it. Maybe it's 10 or 15 bucks. Maybe it's free. I don't know. Oh, I thought about this question yesterday just to prepare. Milk your student status for as long as humanly possible. So whether that means like you get $2 off at the movie theater or whatever, and your ID is still valid or whatever, milk that as long as you can. But your software, like, because you can get all the software, a lot of the 3D stuff, the Adobe stuff, like student prices, milk that as long as you can. Student conferences, like, look at the conferences, because if you're a student, a lot of them might be like $250, $300, $500, something like that. When you're a professional, they expect the companies to pay, so it's like $1,500, like ridiculous amounts of money. Like, no person would just pay it out of their pocket most of the time, because it's like some company's paying for it, right? But as a student, it's like $200 or whatever. Like, take advantage of those student prices and get into those things and check those things out. I'm trying to think if there's any other. Oh, also, like I said, with the internships, like when you're a student, you can apply for those entry level or those interns or co-ops or those kinds of jobs where you can get your foot in the door. Those big places where a lot of the professional level jobs, seems like off the bat they want you to have 3 to 5 years experience and all that kind of stuff. Also, with the experience, is like they want you to have experience. Like, you will come across this, you graduate, and you'll be like, every job I'm looking for wants 2 to 3 years experience. I just graduated. What am I supposed to do? Like, because that's what you're going to see, that I promise you. Well, one, don't let that just because it says that apply anyways. Just ignore that, because they can sort through it or whatever. But the reason is because sometimes, like, that agency I work for, we'd put a job out there and we'd get like 8 resumes. It's like we didn't have a lot of things to choose from, and like 4 of them were total crap. So, like, you never know. Like, you might be the best option they have. Like, even if you don't meet all of their wish list of qualifications, you might be their best option. Still. What else? I felt like I had something else there, but it flew away.
That's fine.
Maybe it'll come back.
How has the pandemic affected you? Like, has it made your life any easier? Maybe a lot harder?
I've had like definitely some stressful times. Just relationships with friends and things have been trickier, and people close to me have really struggled with some different things, and it's been tough to kind of deal with a lot of those different kinds of situations. And it's nice to be home with the family more, and it's also made it a lot tougher as well. And that my wife actually told me this morning that my 6-year-old son he's loud, man. He's boisterous. I love him. He's great, but he keeps me busy and distracted. But she told me he was starting full-time school in 2 weeks, and I was just like, oh. So that's cool. It's kind of like, I like teaching virtually. It has its pros and cons. Like, I can run upstairs grab a snack in between classes, and I'm actually wearing pants today. Like, most of the time, I've got my sports shorts on. I do wear some kind of clothing, but yeah, I throw the collared shirt on or whatever up top, but just socks and the shorts. So you got those kinds of advantages of teaching online. But then again, like, I don't really put the pressure on to like turn cameras on and stuff. And I'll put this out for anybody who's listening. Like, if you can show yourself, like, that's life-giving to professors. It really is. And I know some of you are shy, and maybe you don't want to show where you're at, or you've got brothers and sisters running around, or who knows what. But like, it's a little demoralizing to just talk to nothing, like to talk to little gray boxes for like an hour, not get feedback or chat. Use the chat. Like, I don't understand. Like, I beg people to, like, can put something in the chat. Tell me what you think. Chat. Like that's easy. Like you don't even have to talk. Like you like chat. Use the chat. Like put comments in. But people are so quiet, and yeah, that professors will appreciate that. So
Okay, that's good to know. We've been rolling for about an hour and 15 here. Kind of running out of questions, and nobody's typing in chat. Do you think now might be a good time to end it? Hour and 15? I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Do you have any final words of wisdom?
Oh man, just
things
I've shared it all. It's everything. Now whoever listens to this will like be bored in my lectures where I tell some of these stories. But final words of wisdom. I don't know. Like just maybe more on the pandemic front. Like reach out. Like that's one thing I've learned as an adult. That I've learned like the more like whatever problem or issue or whatever you have, the more that you just kind of leave it to yourself. And I mean that could be all kinds of stuff, whether depression, anxiety, drinking too much, like all that kind of stuff. Like if you just try to handle that yourself and just bottle all that kind of stuff up and kind of handle it yourself, I think you're not going to get there. I think it's going to be like a lot harder problem to solve, where bring other people into it. I mean, just the act of telling somebody what you're doing, like especially like the depression, anxiety. Like I have a lot of like I get together with guys every couple of weeks. Like we just sit around the fire and hang out, and it's super informal, and it's just a chance to like say, hey, like I'm struggling with this, work is hard, all that kind of stuff. Just telling somebody that like makes a huge difference. Like it takes weight off of you. And then guys in particular, guys like to solve problems and come up with solutions for things, even if they're hard. But so you might get some ideas on things to try, or it's just you just try to take it all on yourself. And the school has all kinds of resources for that, and they've ramped them all up big time, like since all this COVID stuff. So there's you can talk to people online, professional help. I mean, if you just talk to a friend or something too, that can make a huge difference. Don't reach out, man, because people that just makes a huge difference. Blah blah blah.
Yep. And don't forget, there's mental health resources on campus, of course.
Yeah, so. You got the CAPS, and your first couple, like they'll talk to you for free, like your first whatever encounter, and maybe a few after that are covered. So you're not gonna like have to give them your credit card when you show up. Just talk to them, and they can, at the worst, just point you in the right direction or give you some options. Because yeah, life is tough now for sure. Like everybody's stressed and thin rope, and I think as we get further and deeper into the election thing going on here soon, we're gonna reach hopefully we can all come down and relax, and we got a vaccine or whatever, where this calms down after November and whatnot.
I'm hoping.
We can all chill out and be calm and all get along and
Yep. All right. Well.
Be prosperous and all that good stuff.
Yep. I think we're about to go here, but thank you to our viewers.
Yeah, thanks for stopping by and let me live on at you.
Yeah, no problem. I will see you later, and for people watching right now, our next stream is coming up in an hour and 45 from now. I'm going to be interviewing Jonah Loeb, former artist at Bethesda. So stay tuned. So
I'm probably going to check some of these out too. So
Thanks for being here, Josh. Thank you for answering my questions.
Yep.
All right. See you guys later.